My name is Emilio Lobato Jr. I was born in Chama, Colorado. I went to school in Chama, the 8th grade. I walked to school 4 years, to high school, to Mercy High School. I walked both ways 5 miles each way. Then later on I went to college at Adams State University, now a university. And I started teaching even before I got my degree. I needed a job teaching and they would hire me, so they hired me to teach. I started teaching in Los Fuertes and then in Chama. And then I thought they changed, they united the school district into one. And I started at that school. I also taught at Sierra Grande School. And then I taught here at Centennial for the rest of the time. And my dad was very interested in education. He went, they took him to schools in different places, in St. Michael in New Mexico, and Regis in Denver. He remembered marching to help to, he marched with the cadets in there, and he was very proud that he marched supporting the American troops that were fighting in the Spanish-American War. So he was a cadet there. Mm-hmm. So he was fairly well educated. And my mother was, well, of course her dad was a very highly educated man. He graduated from the University of Bordeaux and the University of Notre Dame. The University of Paris. So he had 2 degrees. I asked my dad, how come people did not come to the San Luis Valley early in 1598 when they came to New Mexico? He said it was too cold. He said the saying that people have that we have 3 months winter, 9 months winter and 3 very cold ones. It's not made up. It actually happened because it was so cold here because of the ice age, the little ice age. They called it the little ice age of Europe, but it affected all the northern hemisphere. And it was very cold even in the summer. Small grasses grew here in the valley, at the bottom of the valley. The mountains were completely covered with a huge glacier. The mountains over here here in this county, from the very bottom to the very top, they were covered with snow year-round. When the Spaniards came here, it was nothing but snow. The huge glaciers, all the mountain was a huge glacier. And that was the truth throughout the San Luis Valley. And the Spaniards had a lot of sheep in New Mexico. They had some people that came from the United States counted the sheep, and they spent 2 years trying to count all, and they counted over 100,000 head of sheep for 20,000 people. And I told my wife, what did they do with them? And my dad said they would keep them in bunches according to age. They would keep the sheep with a certain age, and they would keep them 3 or 4 years. And then they would drive them, brokers from Chihuahua would come over and buy the sheep. Because the sheep were not sheared. How can you shear several thousand when you only have 2 or 3 in the family? The Lobato family had something like 50,000 head of sheep. My great-great-great-grandfather was coming to the valley here with 15,000. And they would take the sheep to either California or to people that would come for them from Chihuahua, and they would send them there. Over there, what they did was they would kill the sheep, shoot them, or whatever they did, and they would let the sheep there a few days, sometime, and then they would pluck the wool and send it throughout the whole Spanish world. And that was quite something because there were so many sheep in the area. Different tribes came into the valley. They came to hunt. About the only group that stayed in the valley was a small group that stayed close to Fort Garland. Group of youth. Most of them went somewhere else where it was warmer. And there were not that many Native Americans, very few Native Americans. They numbered under, maybe, I don't know, I have no idea, maybe under 200 or 300 at the most. There were not that many. Whenever we needed anything, where would people go? They needed timber, they needed wood, and of course ration for the animals and everything. Whenever they needed anything, right now we go to the store to buy everything. At that time the people went up the hills and got it there for free of charge. And this was one of the incentives that they used to bring people over here to settle in this area, which was very important because people were able to make a living from the land, really. Well, to us, the mountain was everything. It was the most beautiful thing in the area. It was our watershed. Water came from the mountains. Even now, every morning I get up, I look at those mountains. Those mountains are worth $1 million. Just to look at them, the beauty of them. We say the mountains are a blessing to this area. They keep the winds from the east, from here. We don't get any tornadoes and stuff like that because of the mountains. And we don't get excessive floods and on and on. These mountains protect us more than what people think they do. There's only one danger in this mountain, there's a big fault on the base of those mountains that the geologists told us that we could have a 72-point earthquake here. And it hit and it goes all the way to Mount Blanca. A lot of people ask me one question about Mount Blanca. How come they name it Mount Blanca? Because when the early Spaniards came, that mountain was covered with snow from all the way to the bottom. And it was in July, and the mountain was. When they got up in the morning, someone saw the mountain, and they said, "Mire la Sierra Blanca, look at the white mountain." And I always want to mention that because people wonder why it's called the White Mountain when it's not white anymore. This Bobian got the land grant, and he sold parcels to people. They call them, they measure by varas, which is about 33 and a third inch, 33 inches, 33 and a half inches or a third or so. We don't know exactly. And they measured the land by the width, not the length, because they put the land from one creek to the next one. And they call it the vara strips. They were kind of expensive. I asked my dad, how come some people had 100 varas and others had 15? Or said because Bobian sold them for $1 and for a coin, Mexican peso, which was in American dollar was $1. At that time, a coin of $1 was made out of gold, was called 1 peso. And they sold it to 1.5 pesos. So people bought whatever they could. Like my great-great-grandfather bought 7,000 acres. He bought the Tanque Ranch and he bought the Vega, east of the Vega, I mean west of the Vega and north of the Vega. He bought all that land because he was very, very wealthy. And we found that out in an abstract that came out that we saw of the land that he bought that land from so it depended how much money each person had or what they wanted or what they could afford. So a lot of people, they wrote it in Spanish that the Zoe, which means I gave you. But that was wrong. He did not give anyone anything. He sold it. But even now people, Hispanic people, a lot of times say, I asked this guy, how much are you selling the bales for, hay bales? And he told me, no, Zoe, I gave them for so much. So they're using the wrong word. Instead of saying I sell them for so much, they said, I gave them for so much. So it's written wrong that Bobian gave the people land, he didn't give them anything. In fact, the Vega was supposed to be given to the people. We don't know where it stands now. And the mountains he was supposed to give to the people, but he did not do what was supposed, according to the Treaty of Guadalupe. He did not follow all the details, because, in fact, it seems like we didn't find any of the description that said that. It was just common lore that he was supposed to give the mountains to the people. He just gave them rights to them. When Taylor took over, families had to. He was not letting people get up there. They were not paying them to use the mountains, so they were selling their lands and their sheep and cattle, and were moving away. By the end of the first year, instead of having 40 students, I had 21. All those families, almost half of the families have gone from the area. They could not survive without the mountain. Which I thought it was something terrible, because it has happened to many, every time it happens to another country where people are thrown out, I remember that happening here. An exodus, really. I was the one that started the movement. I started the movement to fight for the rights. There was a barber here that told me, what happened to the rights of the people? His name was Luis Valdez. He lived in Corriera. What happened to the rights of the people? What rights? I told him. The rights that people have. I wasn't aware that people had those rights, so I went. She told, look at the deed that when they sold the land to Taylor, in the deed they told him that they had to respect the rights of the people. And I went into the courthouse and I checked the deed, and it did say that. But he went to the court and had them throw that out. And then I said, but he said there's a document known as a Bobian document that states the rights that the people had. And I told him, I wish I could get a copy of that. So one day I was in school, this man came in and threw a paper on my desk and said, they told me that you read Mexican, read that. And I went over there, that was a Bobian document. I think I read it about 20 times. It's written in Spanish. And I read it and said, well, I think the rights that Bobian gave the people were up in the mountain. Where else were you going to get grazing, timber, lumber? Where are you going to get wood if it's not up on the hills, up on the mountains? So I started talking to people, and I started to get people, trying to get them involved in fighting for their rights. And I said, we have to have action, not just talk about it, we have to get united. One of the hardest things that happened to me was I had a hard time getting the people united, because the older people had already given up. He said, we already went to court and they threw us out. Well, they didn't have a chance. So the people were discouraged because they had already been thrown out of court. And I said, no, we have to go back and fight and fight and fight until we win. And it was a very difficult, like I said before, it was difficult to get the people united to fight. One person told me, you know that the Spaniards are the hardest people to get united. But when they get united, they're the most strong. People were saying, in fact, they told us that they had a group here in Costilla that was willing to come and help us fight for the fountains. And I said, no, we're going to win the right way. And I kept talking and talking to people, and then finally, Jack Taylor tried to kill me. He said he knew that I was telling the people not to not to give in to Taylor, because he wanted to kick everyone out. He wanted to buy up the land, and he wanted to get rid of people and buying the land for peanuts. And I said, no, don't sell the land. If you can get to it, pay the taxes, but don't sell it. And he found out that I was talking to the people about it and about the rights. And he tried to shoot me. I was up at the canyon, and they were mutilating my cattle. I had some 70 cows killed in the ranch and mutilated. And I was over there. We were protecting the place 24 hours a day. And one of the times I was there, I remembered seeing the year before my daughter had found a $20 bill, and I looked down and the bullet went right next to my head. And I fell down on the sagebrush, and they kept shooting and shooting and shooting. Finally they stopped, and I stood up, and I didn't see anyone, but I saw a fellow coming over with a little rifle, and I took it away from him. I said, no, I'm not, I wasn't shooting at you, it was a guy up there. We went up there, and like a little knoll, and there they had brushed the area. We were looking for cartridges or whatever, and we started shooting all over. I emptied a whole box of cartridges, shooting all over. And that was the one time. Another time, when they were mutilating my cattle, I noticed that where it was wet, they won't do it. So I went and asked the water commissioner if I could have the water to irrigate my land. And he said, okay, go ahead. And when I went to the head gate, to the ditch, I had to jump in. And when I jumped in, another bullet missed me. About a few days later, I was getting adjusting to a hearing aid that I had bought. And I was in my ranch, and I heard someone speaking about me out in a car, and I went and listened, and they were saying, there's something about this man, they said. We have tried to shoot him 3 times and we have failed. And the day before, 3 days before, while I was walking up the hill, checking on my cows, and this guy was pointing a rifle at me. And I got a stick that I had, and I was going to hit him, and he ran into the car and took off. I heard that same guy speak 3 days later. I heard him say, there's something about this man, we have tried to kill him 3 times. And he said, we fired that rifle all morning. And when we were going to shoot him, we had him right in front of us, the rifle misfired. Apolinar came and talked to me and said, I want to go talk to you. And he went up to the ranch with me, and he told me, you are one of the persons that have suffered most because of Taylor, because he was blocking my road to my ranch. He said, you should join, there's a group now that is trying to start, known as the Land Rights Council. So he asked me, why don't you join them? So I inquired and I joined them. And at first, the people were wondering why I had joined those Chicanos. And I said, they're not Chicanos, but forget about that. They're just a group of people that are trying to help us. Whatever you call them, I don't care, but they're people that are trying to help us. And I started talking to people to join and to give them support. And it was a good thing because they were able to get a grant, to get money, to hire an attorney to fight for the rights. Once they did that, when they were very reluctant to sue Taylor. And at one of the meetings I said, look, if we don't sue Taylor, let's stop talking and go home. And I made a motion and to take him to court. And at first they were very reluctant. Finally, Apolinar said, okay, he seconded. And finally, very reluctant, they all voted for it. And another thing that they were trying to protect me from the FBI because Taylor even tried to hire the mafia to shoot me. When we won, this guy came over and told me, I saved your life. What do you mean you saved my life? I said, yeah, I have a friend that has a friend that has a friend that has a friend in the mafia. And they told me through this group, they told me to find out about you, and said they found out that you were fighting for the rights of the people, not for your own self, but for the rights of the people. So they refused to take the challenge, because they tried to have the mafia kill me. And there for a while, there were a whole bunch of cars going back and forth next to my house. And I was wondering, what were they doing here? They were watching to see what I was doing. And he said, I saved your life. But for one thing I have been fighting for is that we make fire lanes. Because if that mountain goes on fire, it's not only going to destroy the trees and so on, it's going to destroy our watershed, which is very important. I think is one of the most important things to protect the watershed. And also, if they make fire lanes, because this one guy, now that they had that fire up in the north of the county here, one of the firemen told me one of the problems we had was that there were no fire lanes. By the time we get the equipment from all across the state, he says half of the mountain is burned. There's a question of overgrazing. If it is overgrazing because there's too many elk in the area. And right now they're trying to introduce bison. And I think that's a mistake. Bison don't respect fences. Someone rented my neighbor's place, rented my place, and they tore off all my fences. I couldn't keep up. Finally they got rid of them. And the way we got rid of them is that they went into New Mexico, and the people of Taos claimed them because they have a claim to all the stray bison. So they took them in, and the people had to take them out to prove that they were theirs. So they didn't come back anymore. And those bison, they would put 40 bison in 40 acres. That doesn't make any sense at all. So they messed up all our fences and went into our properties and they ate our grass. And then also another thing is that you keep bison there, you're going to start getting poachers. Anywhere where you have bison that are not in a very large area, there's going to be poachers that are going to come in. One of the most important things that I did was give the movement credit, because I had people come and tell me, I thought you were an educated man. I thought you knew better than do something like this, than be fighting for rights. And I said, well, I am well educated, not as much as I wish I would be, but I believe what I'm doing is the right thing for the people here. And they would just look at me, and says, well, oh, because they thought, they thought that I was being dumb because a court decision had given him the right. I said, no, we're going to fight and fight and fight until we get our right. And I told him I will never give up. And I quoted Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill said, never, 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 never give up.